Good morning, everybody. We have a great show for you today, and we have a very special guest. Today, we're going to be talking about U visas. So please hang tight, and we will be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Talks on Immigration. My name is Carlos Wetton, and I'm one of the attorneys here at Jaime Barron PC. I am the managing attorney of our office, our brand new office in Seattle. And again, this weekly program on Facebook is regarding just different immigration topics that we would like to go through, and specifically what kind of questions we get from our clients about just a variety of immigration topics and how to become legal permanent residents or citizens here in the United States. Today, we have a very, very special guest to talk with us about U visas. We have our managing attorney of the entire firm. His name is Hussein Sanrudin. He is the legend of immigration law, not just in Dallas, but across the country. Hussein, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. I'm enjoying the Seattle weather that you brought to us in Dallas. Raining cats and dogs. I'm building an ark. So, hi everyone. Pleasure having you, talking to you. I've been doing this for now. Oh my God, it's my silver jubilee, 25 years. So it's been a while. So let's talk U visa, shall we?
Fantastic. Yes, that's what we want to discuss today are U visas. So, Hussein, uh, just to get us started, what exactly is a U visa and who is eligible for a U visa?
That's a really good question. A lot of people get confused by this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what U visa is, and more importantly, what it's not. U visa is a special visa that the United States government allows to give to individuals who are victims of a severe crime. Now, these are loaded words. Be careful. Victim of a severe crime. So, if you are a victim of a severe crime, or in some instances, and we'll talk a little bit later about that, if you're an indirect victim, you may qualify for a special visa called the U visa. But in order for you to get that, not only you have to be a victim, you also have to report that crime. And that crime, the officer or the police department or wherever you have reported has to fill out a form on your behalf to say you were a victim of this crime, but more importantly, you cooperated. Remember, folks, this is a carrot. This is what it is. What the government wants you to do, because in the past, in the immigrant community, there were crimes being committed, people were afraid to report it. So they're saying, hey, if you help us out, we may help you out. So we will give you this carrot. If you cooperate, report a crime, assist us with identifying that criminal, and if you have been traumatized, that's another word, if you have been impacted by this crime, and you can prove that, we will give you this special visa called the U visa. Now, few things to keep in mind. Who qualifies? Well, this actually visa is great in a sense that a large number of individuals can qualify. I came to the United States without permission. You may qualify. I came here multiple times. You may qualify. I may have a deportation order. You may qualify. Well, I've committed some severe crimes. There's a possibility there as well. So this is one of those things that allows you to forget all of these things forgiven if you assist the government in this situation. So
Hussein,
go ahead.
You mentioned something very important, which is the crime suffered by the victim has to be a severe crime,
Right.
meaning not all crimes will qualify for a U visa.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Because look, here's what happens a lot of times. We have clients who come in. I recently had a case where somebody, well, their car got broken into. Well, they may feel that it's a really bad crime, but the government's going to say, no, it's not severe enough crime, right? We had a situation when somebody's house got burglarized. They were not at home. Well, that doesn't qualify. I'm so sorry. But we have other crimes, for example, in which I have a ton of clients who were robbed at a convenience store. They run a convenience store, they got robbed at gunpoint. Well, in most instances, if a gun is involved, it becomes an aggravated situation where you can do that. We have assault. There are different type of assaults. If somebody just pushes you, they may just say, it's not an aggravated crime, right? But if somebody just hits you and punches you, you may qualify. The other thing for this is sometimes these crimes will differ, and this is why this is very important to remember. They may differ state by state. So some of the crimes that you may say, well, I this happened to me here, yeah, you may not qualify. But in other places, you have to argue and say this could be an aggravated crime because remember, this immigration is a federal law, so they're only looking at federal definition. State definition may be different. Yeah. So if you got a crime committed against you, is going to be in, let's say Oregon. It may not qualify, but it may be qualifying in Washington State. So we have to kind of look at that. So this is really important to remember that the qualifying crime that we are talking about could differ. So a lot of people just say, just go ahead and file a U visa. Just go ahead and file. Be very careful. If you don't do it the right way, you don't put the right words, you don't check the right box, you may not qualify. Yeah.
That's a very good point, Hussein. And really, the only way that someone can know whether a crime qualifies is to schedule an appointment with an immigration attorney and specifically bring the police report, have us review it so that we can know if that crime qualifies for a U visa or not.
And not only that, one thing, sorry to interrupt, Carlos.
No.
You and I have seen where if you read the police report, it says one thing, but when the police officer fills out the application for U visa, it may not indicate what we needed to say. So we sometimes have to go back and say, hey, can you please indicate this? Otherwise, this person may not qualify. So we got to be really cautious that you just don't hastily go out there and try to get the documentation done without talking to a lawyer first. So that's really important. So first things first, if you are a victim of a crime, better talk to a lawyer and figure it out. Hey, look, do I qualify? Well, the other question that does come up, Carlos, is, well, yeah, it happened, but it happened more than a year ago, or it happened 4 years ago. Can I still qualify? The answer is maybe, because a lot of the police departments work differently. For example, here in Dallas, if it happened more than 6 months ago or a year ago, they will just say, we're not going to sign it. But I recently had a U visa search signed where the crime took place more than 5 to 6 years ago. So let's, Carlos, let's talk a little bit about that. Where are we getting into U visa certification? What is that, right?
That's right, Hussein. You've mentioned a couple of times this U visa certification, this application or form that the police department fills out. Now, we know that it's important to report the crime to the police, to get a police report that we can review and that we can submit to the immigration service. But how important is this U visa certification? How crucial is it? Is it absolutely necessary or not?
Absolutely, yes. If you don't have a certification, you're not going to get your U visa. We haven't had any luck with that. So if you have to get a certification. But the second most important part of it is it has to be gotten and received from a particular person. Not every officer can sign off on a U visa certification. We have to submit documentation showing that in that police department or in that sheriff's department or even with immigration, this person is authorized to sign that document. So you have to make sure you get the right person to sign that. Otherwise, your application is going to get rejected. And as I mentioned before, it has to mark particular areas to indicate that you qualify. Also, very important to remember, it cannot be a situation where you just report the crime and just say, okay, I'm done, I'm done. We have people who said, yeah, I reported it, but when they called me to go testify, I said no. Well, remember, I told you it's a carrot. The government wants you to help them with the case. And if you just report it and just backed off, they will say, well, you didn't help us. Why will we help you? So just keep that in mind also. So that's very important as well, right? I mean, that has happened to you a couple of times, Carlos, with cases like that. Yeah.
Definitely. It's happened to me that people will say, something happened to me a decade ago. Can I still apply? Or I never reported it to the police. And I have to tell them, unfortunately, though the crime that you suffered would qualify, this is a crucial element to have it reported to the police and to have them sign a certification.
Right.
Now, is it only the police department that can sign a certification, or are there other agencies that can do so?
There are other agencies, and in some instances, it could be the judge. We had a recent case at our office where the person who reported it, uh, basically, that officer was no longer there. So they're like, okay, we can verify this. So we went to the judge and say, hey, judge, you adjudicated this case. You're still on the bench. Would you mind signing it? And they said, yes. We had situations where in Texas we have CPS, or Child Protective Services, where there's a child abuse case. Yes. Then they responded that they were able to sign it. We had cases in which immigration was able to sign off on some of those documentation. But again, the key here is the right person who is authorized to sign it. Second thing, adding to that, Carlos, that we also need to discuss is the police department, sheriff department, all these, they specifically have their own restrictions as well. So we had an application that we had recently filed, but they said, hey, it happened in Georgia. They said, no, the case must be active. We will only sign it if the case is active. So sometimes you have to move quickly on those cases. In some cases, we had a case that was 10 years old, but in that case, it involved a child molestation case. So they said, okay, because there was a minor included, we are willing to sign it. Now, this may be a really appropriate time, Carlos, also talk about the difference between indirect victims and direct victims. Okay?
Yes, that was actually going to be my next question, Hussein, because
Yeah.
what if you have a situation where the parent is undocumented, but
Mhm.
the child, who's a United States citizen, is the victim of a crime that qualifies? Are they still able to apply for that U visa?
Surprisingly, the answer is yes. We had cases like this. Unfortunately, I had a couple of cases like this in which the child was a U.S. citizen, was abused, was molested. Uh, the family found out, they reported it. Child was a minor. So the parents were classified as indirect victims. That means they were able to get that because the child was a US citizen. We have other cases in which, in some situations, even a sibling may be able to qualify. A brother or sister who may be a minor may qualify in this situation who is undocumented. So, in situations like this, and you say, well, it happened, but my child or my family member is a US citizen, so it's really not going to affect that. No, you may still qualify. So let's go ahead and talk about U visa derivatives, who qualifies and who is a direct or indirect victim, right? So the good thing about this, about U visa now, is it doesn't just apply to one person. So let's say Carlos doesn't have proper documentation and he gets abused. He gets beaten up in the parking lot at a Kraken game or whatever it is. You know how that goes. So he gets beaten up by somebody. He reports it. He assists. His spouse may also qualify in this application. Okay, so we may be able to include that person in there. A child who may be a minor may qualify. We may be able to. So it may be one victim, but you may have multiple derivatives. We have situations where a derivative was included, even if they were not afterwards were not together, but at the time of the crime, they were together. So it's entirely possible. So there are various ways to do this, to apply for this. So we can definitely do that. Now, what happens with a lot of these individuals when we talk about G visa, Carlos, like, yeah, I get you, attorney, but what am I getting with U visa? Really important. What am I going to get with it? Well, let's talk about that.
Exactly right.
Go ahead.
It's like you mentioned before when we were talking about eligibility, who's eligible for a U visa. And you mentioned things like deportation, multiple entry, someone who entered undocumented. So we've discussed that they're still eligible for a U visa. But let's say they were granted a U visa,
Mhm.
and suddenly, what comes with that?
Right.
They're able to work, they're able to obtain work authorization,
Mhm.
and they're able to. It's a status here in the United States.
Yeah,
Correct, Hussein?
yeah, yeah. So multiple steps to this. Once you file an application, you will get a receipt notice. Hey, we got the paperwork. Then the next step happens is you get something called a bona fide letter, which government says, hey, we didn't really review everything, but we review enough to think that you have a legitimate case. What does that mean? Well, now you can go and apply for a work permit. Excellent. Now you can apply for a work permit, get your social security card, get a driver's license, all of those things. So you do that. Now the process takes a long time. You got to be careful. Not as long as all the other stuff, but still takes a time. Why? Because there are only 10,000 U visas available a year. So there's a big backlog. So you may apply now and you may not get the eventual benefit 5, 6, 7 years down the road. But first you're going to get your work permit. Then your application is going to get approved if everything is correct. And then the government's going to give you a long-term work permit, a 4-year work permit. You stay on that work permit for 3 years, you become eligible to apply for a green card. Okay, so that's the ultimate benefit. The goal, the good thing here is you apply work permit first, then the 4-year work permit, and with that, if you're on that work permit for 3 years, you can apply for permanent residency. One thing that we would not recommend to anybody, if you apply for this benefit, you cannot travel outside the United States. Do not travel, okay? Because it's a benefit. If the government says, they're not here, then they may either reject the benefit or you may have to do all the paperwork outside the country. So work permit, green card, not only for you, very important, not only for you, but for your family. So your entire family gets this. It may take a little while, but this is one of the ways that a lot of our community members, a lot of our immigrants are able to get lawful status, right?
You mentioned the bona fide determination letter, Hussein. I know that in the Dallas office and here in the Seattle office as well, we've received quite a few of these letters recently within the last year for people who maybe had a U visa case that was submitted within the last couple of years, and they've just been waiting. So the government, in my opinion, from what I understand, is kind of trying to help out with this backlog and mailing out these bona fide determination letters so that people can at least have some sort of work authorization while they're waiting for that visa to become available.
Exactly. So that gives you that positive thing that you have something that you can show saying, look, I am legitimate, I'm legal here. And folks, let's be really honest, this is election year. This is a really important benefit that you have to get that done right now. Now, one of the things that I will emphasize, Carlos, although this is a great benefit that a lot of our community members are not aware of, we also see the other side of it, which is a lot of people are taking advantage of it. A lot of people are not filling it out carefully. A lot of people are putting false information in there. I'll give you a good example. We had a lawyer here in Texas, folks. She was signing off on some of these U visa applications. She was forging the document of a police officer. She lost her license. She was placed in federal proceedings. She went to jail for a period of time. So just because somebody says, hey, I can put you up, be careful. Always be careful. There are a lot of people who will just come to us and say, oh, okay, this happened. You know, this crime was committed against me. Here it is. And we can say, no, you need more than that. Immigration is a little bit savvy. They understand. They will ask for additional information. So it's really, really crucial that you just don't go or try to fill out the form yourself or do it through a amigo or a tia or a cousin or whatever. Let's not do that. This is your life. If you get this done correctly, you will be able to get permanent residency for you and your family. So it's okay to get this evaluated properly. What do you think about that? I'm pretty sure you have seen quite a bit of that in your neighborhood as well, right?
I have. And in fact, I've had people recently, a lot of the same situations. They were burgled or, there's an issue with their stolen car. And I've unfortunately had to tell them, I'm sorry, you're not eligible for a U visa. But we've also had other situations recently where people were suffering armed assaults while they were robbed. And that does qualify. It's important to seek out the right kind of representation and to be careful of people and attorneys or notarios or anybody else that may promise you benefits and the world and a work permit if you kind of maybe exaggerate a little bit and maybe you say something different than what actually happened. And one thing that's very important that I like to remind people is that here at Jaime Barron, we're always going to tell you the truth. We're going to give you an honest assessment of your case, no matter what your circumstances are. We're going to sit down with you. We're going to review your documents. We're going to ask you the right questions, and we're going to give you our honest assessment. That's what we do. And if you're not eligible for a certain benefit, we're going to tell you. We're not going to try and get your money just so that we can, earn a few extra bucks that day. We're going to always tell you the truth, and we're only going to recommend benefits that you specifically are eligible for. And when it comes to U-Visa, it's so important to hire the right people because we know what kind of evidence we need. And we know how to prepare everything so that to maximize your chances of getting an approval with USCIS, because this is what we do. And I don't know about you, Hussein, but I'm a little bit of an immigration nerd, and I'm always reading about it, and I'm always interested in it. Right. And this is what we're passionate about, and specifically helping the members of our community who have been victims of crimes and are eligible for this very specific benefit.
And absolutely. And Carlos, as you mentioned, sometimes in our community, unfortunately, our clients sometimes get victimized twice. They've been victim of a crime, and then they get victimized by a shady lawyer or a notario, somebody who takes their money and runs or files the documents improperly. And that's what we want to avoid. And as you all know in the community, that we have offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, Seattle, Washington, D.C. You can contact us over the phone. We can do Zoom. We can do in person, and give you an honest assessment of your case. And that's, as Carlos mentioned, that's what we pride ourselves on being honorable, on being honest, and being upfront with you, so you know what you're getting in. And that's the key here.
Yes, exactly right. And in fact, Hussein, if someone wants to come to our office in Seattle in person and to meet with me to help evaluate their case, right now we have a very special offer, which we're offering free consultations until the end of March. And so I encourage everybody that's listening to us, if they have questions and they're in the Seattle area, or if they're in Washington or Oregon and they're willing to make the drive, come meet with us in person so that we can sit down, talk about your options, and especially if you think you may be eligible for a U-Visa, to contact us as soon as possible so that we can get that process started by evaluating and then contacting the right authorities to get that certification and get your application submitted.
Absolutely. Well, Carlos, it has been a pleasure speaking with you over long distance. You guys can keep your weather. We are okay with sunshine in Texas. But thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to talk a little bit about this issue that we are really, really passionate about. And again, we have 8 locations across the United States, in person, Zoom, phone. We are here to assist to the best of our ability and give you an honest assessment. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Hussein, for joining us today and for lending your expertise to us. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for tuning in today on Talks on Immigration. And we will see you next time with a great immigration topic and a new guest.